Hello, welcome. My name is Sheila and welcome to my YouTube channel, In a Balance Sacred Space. I've been a yoga teacher since 2017 under the umbrella of a few names, but I've now settled on Inner Balance Yoga. But I do a plethora of other things related spiritually as well. So welcome. These are some Magical Monday shorts. So in my experience as a yoga teacher, I get many beginners coming to my classes, and I do tend to put my beginners through their paces. But there are some common issues that I do tend to find. Now, there are many YouTube videos here that will give you beginner classes, beginner postures, but sometimes we need to address some of the common issues with postures. So this is the Magical Monday shorts that I'm going to be doing about once a month, and we are going to start with cat-cow and child's pose. So these are really basic beginner postures. And we're not just going to show you how to do them and why we're doing them, but I'm going to address some of the issues and how to modify them. Okay, so let's look at cat-cow. And also child's. It is, both of them are postures that stretch the back. Cat-cow also strengthens the back, strengthens the whole of the back body. There's lots of muscles in the back of the body, from the shoulders all the way down to the glutes. It helps you to engage your tummy muscles, which is really important in yoga, because the more we engage them, the more stability we have. And I like to do a little section in my classes of abdominal exercises just to get people to engage these. And cat-cow is also a really good posture to do when you suffer with backache. It can relieve backache. It's such a gentle movement. It's a great all-rounder. So first of all, I am going to show you cat-cow and the alignment of what you need to be doing, and then I'm going to address the issues of cat-cow. So when we come into cat-cow, we want to make sure that our knees and hips are directly in line with each other. So hips over your knees. So not here, not back here, directly over your knees. Same with your wrists. Your wrists need to be directly in line with your shoulders. So if I was to do it front ways, come back a little bit, it will be more or less about here. Not out here, because that is not directly underneath your shoulders. Okay? Because if they're not directly underneath your shoulders, if they're out here, then that is not a tabletop position. And more, even worse actually, is if you have them too close to your knees. So look what's happened to the shape of my spine. It's become a little bit scrunched up, and I'm not giving myself space. So here, wrist underneath your shoulders, wrist shoulder distance apart, hips directly in line with your knees, and your knees hip distance apart as well. And when we talk about hip distance, we talk about the femur, the long leg bone, coming up to the top of your hips and sitting in the sockets. So this is not hip distance here. This is hip distance. Okay? So I'm just going to demonstrate cat-cow. So I'm extending my spine, relaxing my belly to the floor, sending my chest forwards. The back is contracting. And then I tuck my pelvis under. I pull my tummy muscles in and up. My chin comes to my chest. And now the back is stretching and the front of my body is contracting. And then I will inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So when I am pushing in the opposite direction, like I'm doing now, I'm pushing through my hands, pushing through my shoulders, contracting my tummy muscles and stretching out. This is cow pose. This is cat. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, so this is one of the most basic postures in yoga. It's done in nearly every class. It's done in hatha, hatha flow, vinyasa. There's some sort of variation of cat-cow, whether you're doing it seated in this sort of position or doing it with a leg raised. There's so many different variations, but we're just going to concentrate on the basic base pose. So, one of the common issues is wrists. Okay, so people putting pressure on their wrists. There is no getting out of this. You are going to put pressure on your wrists. Your weight is bearing down on your wrists. And if you look at my wrists, my flexibility in my wrists is fairly good. So I am making a 90-degree angle with my wrists. And I can probably shorten that distance and make an 80-degree angle. But a lot of people do not have that flexibility in the wrists. And granted, if you do cat-cow posture, you will eventually strengthen up the wrists. But it's a good idea to get some flexibility into those wrists and strengthen them up, and that will help you in your cat-cow posture, because we do a lot of postures on our hands and knees, so it's a good idea to get them strengthened up. So for this, you are going to need a couple of cans or some very light weights. Use your mats. And another good idea is to invest in these like half blocks. You can get some foam ones that are a little bit softer. And I will show you how to use them to modify your practice. So it's if you haven't got the flexibility to do the 90-degree angle in your wrists. So first of all, we're going to work on some strengthening and flexibility of your wrists. So bring your hands out and flex up and down. And you're going to circle. Don't worry if you can hear bits of cracking or creaking, that's perfectly fine. And of course, if you've had a broken wrist before, then you just need to be a little bit extra careful. But all these exercises, change direction, are going to be good to strengthen up your wrist if you have suffered an injury in the past. Just need to have a quick sip of water. Okay, so after circling, going to put one hand out. You're just going to pull back on the fingers and you'll feel a stretch through this part of your wrist here into your hand and maybe into the backs of your fingers. Don't pull hard. And then the other side. Okay, bring your hands together and push into each palm. Push, push, push. And release. And again. So a lot of strength and flexibility of the wrists come with the muscles in the forearms. These muscles here. Okay, if you can feel that on your wrists already, give them a shake. This will always loosen up the wrists. Grab your cans or your light weights and it's just a simple up, down. So get those wrists moving. Okay, the next exercise is a little bit harder. So this is if you have the flexibility in your wrists, and if you don't, I'm going to show you how to modify that in a minute. Come back up into tabletop. Same stance. And all you're going to do is take some weight on to your wrists, coming forwards, and then take that weight off. So I want you to start pressing some weight into your hands as well as your wrists. So the weight should be distributed into the tips of your fingers, into this part of your hand here where the index and thumb meet, and the underside of the knuckles. So slowly coming forwards, taking some weight and coming back taking that weight off. So this is a very, very good exercise for strengthening up your wrists. And then you can just come back into tabletop, and then you're going to circle around your wrists. Keep pressing into the underside of your knuckles, the underside of your fingers. So it's not unusual to feel that your wrists are starting to ache a little, and then change direction. Especially when you do this exercise as well as shaking, there's a very good counter posture to do to relieve the wrists when they've been in this position, is to just rest the back of the hands on the floor and stretch out the wrists in the opposite direction. So I'm not putting any weight down, I'm just literally relieving my wrists of that ache that I've built up. And then of course give them a loose shake. So if you haven't got that flexibility in your wrists, as in you can't do the 90 degrees, they're more like this, say maybe 100 degrees. They could be even 110 if you've suffered an injury before. So what you would do then is grab your mat, roll your mat up, and then you're going to put the palm of your hand, the very base of the palm of your hand, on your mat, and then let your fingers come down to the floor. And you should already feel how much pressure that has taken off of your wrists. So this is if you've had injuries, if you've lost the flexibility in your wrists and they do not bend, this is a good way to do it. And of course you can still do cat-cow. It's just a lot more comfortable. You can still do this to strengthen up your wrists. It just makes it a little bit more comfortable. So another good thing is maybe when you're in a class you haven't got time to roll your mat up. So this is where these come in, these very thin half blocks. Okay, and like I said, you can get them in a foam. So this is a foam block, but this is too deep. So you can get a half foam block. Okay, and you can get these at a well-known shop on the internet. And if you've got two of these little foam blocks, I've only got one with me, so I'm just going to demonstrate again. What you would do is you'd have the base of your palm resting on the block, spread your fingers down, and again that you can see already it's given me that a degree where I'm not at 90 like this. So it's going to take a little bit of relief out of your wrists if you have trouble. So this is probably more ideal to have, because if you ever do anything on your hands and your wrist, you can just grab your blocks, and there we go. Again, cat-cow. Anything on your wrist is accessible. Obviously you don't want to start balancing, that sort of thing. It's basically just for anything that's really, really simple until you start to work some strength and flexibility into your wrist. So they are your modifications. Roll your mat up, the base of the palm on your mat, or a couple of foam blocks, base of the palm on the blocks, and let your fingers come down and touch the ground. So people often get the breathing mixed up with cat-cow. So anything where you're extending your spine like this, you want to be breathing in. Okay? When you're contracting, so you're pulling the tummy muscles in and you're contracting this space, you want to be breathing out. So it's inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So it's the same as if you were doing sit-ups. You're on the floor and you're going to contract and pull yourself up. You wouldn't want to be breathing in as you're contracting. Okay, you'd want to exhale, inhale. So just another quick demonstration. Drop your belly. My chest is extending outwards, so you're going to inhale here. When I contract, I pull my tummy muscles in and up, engaging them, and that's when I want to exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And that is cat-cow. So I'm going to briefly go through child's pose. Child's pose is used a lot to counter posture something. So if you've been working on your back, you might want to just come into a child's pose, balasana, to just relax the back and relax your hip flexors is another thing that you might use it for. And this is child's pose. It rests the back. Okay. We also call this fetus pose. So obviously there are some problems with this. So if you have a big bust, you might find it difficult to come down, or if you're of bigger build, you might find it difficult to come down over your legs. You might find it difficult to bring your forehead down to your mat. So bringing your forehead down to your mat is what people tend to think they should do. And if you haven't got the flexibility in your hips, or if you are of a bigger sized woman in the front of your body, then quite often this is what I see. So forehead comes down and then the buttocks come up. So we end up being like this. And that's not really going to help you to relax and round your back. Okay, so there's several things that you can do to help this. You can, if you feel the pressure on your knees, going to roll up a blanket. I haven't got one with me, but you're going to roll up a blanket, Or these blocks are another thing that are handy, and you can pop that in between your calf muscles and your thighs, and that can relieve some pressure off your knees. When you fold over, ideally when you do child's pose, it's knees together. But if you need a bit of space to breathe, you might want to just separate your knees just a tiny bit. So we're not doing wide leg forward fold, or wide leg child's. We are doing a child's pose. So just a little bit of separation in your knees. So when you come forwards, you will be able to breathe much better. So I said about getting the forehead down to the floor. This is more important. Sorry, no, it's not important. What's more important is resting your sit bones on your heels. Okay, so you can have a rolled up blanket or a foam pad in between, but this here is more important as you fold over and round and relax your back. So as I said, if you do that and you feel your buttocks then raising up away from your heels, there are several things that you can do. Okay, make fists with your hand down, and your forehead will sit on your fist. If it's still not high enough, you can use one fist on top of the other. So your forehead now rests on your fists. Your head's a little bit higher, but you're still making that contact with a solid surface. And your sit bones remain on your heels. Another thing that you can use is another type of block, which is really a brick. So there we have a block, a foam block, and this is more of a foam brick. So these are handy because they can go in several different sizes. So again, your forehead can come down onto your block and your sit bones remain in contact with your heels. Like I said, you can change this to any height, and you still get to relax your back, relax your shoulders. And that is your modifications for child's pose. So there we go. 2 basic postures that do tend to cause issues with beginners. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you enjoy what I do, I also do another variation of Magical Mondays. You will see that I've gone through the chakras, and we are currently going through the eightfold of all the different things we need to do to get into a state of bliss. Okay, so at the moment we're working on the yamas. So it doesn't always involve lots of yoga postures. It involves lots of other things as well. So take a look at that. And if you like what I do, please subscribe. My name is Sheila. Thank you for practicing with me today.